There are 7 harsh realities of policing, and I'm going to talk to you about those 7 things today. Of course, there's some more, but these are the key 7 things that I can think of that really are the harsh realities that in the recruitment websites, they just don't talk to you about these things. And I want to give you the benefit of my experience and the experience of my colleagues who work at Blue Light and all of the thousands of people who have supported throughout the police recruitment process over the past 30 years now. I'm Brendan from Blue Light, and I've been doing exactly that, coaching people for the police recruitment process, promotion boards and specialist interviews ever since I got promoted to sergeant over 30 years ago. I've been in the police sector now for 39 years, served for 3 decades, and I'm here today to share some of my knowledge, my understanding, give you some practical advice, which I hope will help serve you. So this is meant not to shock you. It's not meant to put you off, because at the end, I'm going to talk about 5 amazing parts of being a police officer. But first of all, should we dive into the 7 harsh realities? Yeah, let's go. Number 1, anxiety. You are going to feel anxious a lot of the time, especially in your first few years. It's quite normal. It's usual for you to feel a sort of pre-shift anxiety. I can still remember my very first day walking down towards the path where the police station was, and just feeling like I just didn't belong. And how do I even get in? You know, there's so many questions whizzing around my head. And what you'll find is that your tutor, your sergeant, the people around you, they'll welcome you, they'll make you feel welcome, and they'll kind of ease you into it. But no matter how much that happens, in your first few years especially, you're going to feel at times like an imposter. But it's okay, because the reason why you're feeling like that is probably because you're going to be faced with new experiences, and more about that after. But it's these new experiences that are the thing that you probably crave, and it's probably one of the reasons why you want to join. So in terms of that pre-shift anxiety that you may have in your first few weeks as a student officer, I've got some advice for you here. The thing is, it's okay, right? That's the first thing to say, it's okay. You've got people who are experienced who are going to support you. Listen to what they've got to say. Ask questions, but not at the wrong time. Not when they're like really pulled out. And, you know, learn to just shut the F up, because remember, you're like the stinky new boy, stinky new girl, and there's people around you who just want to get on with the job, but they also want to help you. And they don't really want to hear about how great it was at training school, or what a laugh we had, or whatever. You know, there's a time and place for it. So shut the F up, listen, and when you talk, it's to ask questions. Unless someone asks you, tell me something about training, or tell me whatever it is. It's not about keeping yourself to yourself. It's just about easing yourself in a little bit. And I remember one of my good sergeants told me, there's a reason why you've got 2 of these and 1 of those. You should be listening more than twice as much as you're talking. Does that make sense, folks? So it's okay to feel a little bit anxious. And trust me, that feeling will go with you for the rest of your career. I can still remember the first time I put these on and someone called me Sarge. These were my epaulets. Someone called me Sarge, and I was like, whoa. And then the first time I put these on, I can still remember it. Elizabeth Slinger Road Police Station, South Manchester Division, Greater Manchester Police. And I put these on in the restroom and walked out, and I was in the corridor walking towards the inspector's office, and someone called me boss. And I was like, honestly, it doesn't go away. But that's one of the great things about the job. All right, make sense? Number 1. So number 2, annual leave and rest days. You are going to get annual leave and rest days, but expect annual leave to get cancelled. Expect rest days to get cancelled. In terms of your shifts that you're working, my advice is don't arrange anything social around a day that you know you're rostered to be working. So if you're on an early shift, don't arrange to go out that night, because there's every chance you could start at 6 or 7 in the morning and you could still be there at 8, 9, 10 in the evening. Because if you lock up, you might be the best person to deal with that particular case. When I say lock up, I mean arrest someone. And you might be there right until the evening, and you can't guarantee that you're going to get to your social event. Same thing in the morning. Oh, I'm on an afternoon shift, so I'll arrange to have a coffee with one of my friends, or just go for a walk or something with one of my friends, only to disappoint them because you get called in early, because you're called in for court, short notice court, witness at court, or the case you were dealing with yesterday still needs dealing with. You've got to get witness statements and the clock's ticking. The person who's been arrested is still in custody and the clock's ticking. So my advice on days that you're working, rostered to work, don't plan any social things. You can still do things in your own time, but don't plan anything social because there's every chance you're going to let people down. Rest days could get cancelled. Holidays that you've booked could get cancelled. You know, they could. It's only happened to me once, but it has happened. So one of the things that I used to appreciate as a sergeant is if someone was taking leave and it was really special because they're getting married, or it's a special anniversary, or something special and they're going away for something special, I would really fight to protect that officer's leave, you know, because I'm their sergeant and that's my job. So there's a little bit of communication needed to make sure that Sarge knows that this is like really special leave, and they will fight your corner for you to make sure you actually get that leave. So like I said, it's only happened to me once that I've had cancelled leave in a 3-decade career. So it doesn't happen often, but it does happen because you don't know what you're going to have to drop everything for. You really don't. And when we're in unusual times, more unusual than ever, and there's always going to be something that's bubbling. So when you do get the rest days, enjoy them. When you do get the leave, enjoy it. Leave work behind. Don't take your laptop with you. Don't take your tablet with you, whatever. Leave that at work because you're on leave. You're on rest days. Number 3. And by the way, these harsh realities aren't in any particular order. I just scribbled them down. And I know there's more, but these are the ones I could think of immediately. To do a nice number, 7. I didn't want to overload you with like 10 or 20. So number 3, burnout. I've been there myself, and I've seen so many officers go there as well. And during your career as a police officer, you are going to witness like 500 to 600 traumatic events where most people who aren't police or aren't other emergency services, they're going to witness like 3 at the most. And you're going to witness 500 to 600. And it has this drip, drip, drip effect. And at some point, you'll burn out. At some point, you'll feel so exhausted that the only thing you can do is just call in sick. I mean, I've been there. I mean, I was driving to work one day as an inspector, as a neighbourhood inspector. The pressure was enormous. I know I was burning myself out. I had knots in my back, not had them since I retired. And I remember getting to the sergeant's office and just giving the sergeant, one of the sergeants, my job phone and just saying, I don't want this anymore, I'm going home. I was losing it. I'd lost it. That was some form of burnout, exhaustion, mental health issue. Now, this was years ago and the job wasn't very good at supporting people, and they just told me take a week's garden leave and we'll talk about it when you get back. Garden leave was just like unrecorded leave. And I came back and no one talked about it. So it's going to happen. At some point, it's going to happen. So look, take this really seriously. Take really good care of yourself. You've got to be selfish before you can be selfless. You've got to take care of the me before you can take care of the we. And in terms of your family and friends, you are no good to anyone. I mean, after that episode, I was no good to anyone in my family. You know, I was so detached. You know, I'm just thinking back to that time and thinking, how on earth was that me? But all of the police officers I know who've retired can all talk about similar things. So you've just got to make sure that you look after yourself. And I say this, you know, just please do. Because when you fall off that cliff edge, it's a big drop. So what I'd like you to picture in your mind, and this is something that I've picked up over the years, and I find it really, really useful, is imagine actually a cliff edge ahead of me. Then imagine a picket fence that you can step over, but it's going to stop you about 20 feet from the edge, or 10 feet from the edge. And then another 10 feet closer to you is a big sign that says caution. And the caution sign is when you recognize that, look, I'm getting burnt out or exhausted here. and I need to take caution before I cross that picket fence and before I get too close to the edge and fall off it. Because when I just drove home, having given the sergeant my job phone, that's the cliff edge. Now, the cliff edge can be worse. I mean, there's so many police officers who are off sick with welfare, mental health issues, and that, you know, I pray for all of them. You know, my heart reaches out to them and their families, but there's many police officers who have committed suicide because of the stresses and strains of the police. Now, I don't want to put you off. I really don't. This isn't to put you off. This is just like harsh, real talk truths about policing. Because at the end of this, I'm going to talk to you about some of the absolute bonuses that demonstrate to me, that prove to me that I wouldn't have done anything else. You know, I'm so convinced that I would never have done anything else if I had my time again. But look, burnout is a thing. So look after yourself and take time out for yourself. I didn't do enough of this, but take time out for you. Because you, like I said, you've got to be selfish to be selfless. You've got to look after the we before you can look after, you've got to look after the me before you can look after the we. And time out for yourself isn't just like, oh, I'm going to spend the next 2 hours doom scrolling, or I'm going to spend 2 hours watching some nonsense on TV. That is not what I'm talking about. Get your shoes on, get your boots on, whatever, get out, go to the gym, go for a swim, go for a walk, do some activity, look at the trees, sit down somewhere, gaze at the countryside, whatever. Do something like that. That is what's needed, not sitting down in front of the TV or your screen or whatever. Make sense? Right, awesome. Number 4, really closely related to that is your health. You know, there were times I looked after myself when I was in a job, there were times I just didn't. And, you know, there were times I wished other people had looked after me, as in said, look, Brendan, you really need to do a little bit more exercise or whatever, or just ask me what's going on. And by the way, I'm going to wind back a little bit to the number 3, burnout. Look out for other people who might be burning out, and don't be afraid to ask them how they're feeling. And when they say, you know, living a dream, job's a good one, you know, tough day, but tomorrow's a better day. Tomorrow's always a better day, or fresh start tomorrow. Ask them again. You know, ask them again, know how you're really feeling, because I've noticed X, Y, and Z about your behaviour at the moment, and that's not normally you. You know, it's part of the job, innit? No, it's not. How are you really feeling? And be prepared for the tissues. You know, I've not got them here with me, but I used to have a box of tissues in my office, in my drawer. I learned that a box of tissues was a necessary thing as a sergeant and as an inspector, because sometimes your officers will cry, and that's okay. It's not a weakness. They need to. And it's because you've asked the right questions. So ask the right questions of each other. Look after each other, because when someone's almost at that cliff edge, they're incapable of looking after themselves. Make sense? All right. Number 4, health. You won't believe the number of officers you will see who you'd think that their ref's break, however short it might be, or the food that they brought with them is comprised of a cigarette and an energy drink. The amount of officers I used to see walking around with energy drinks first thing in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. That is not a substitute for looking after yourself. I'm sorry, energy drinks, but look, just know. There was a time on nights where I got into a habit of taking like caffeine tablets. I can't remember what they're called now, but just not good, you know. And I realized, you know, am I getting addicted to these things? There was a period where I found earlys really tough because I wasn't sleeping well. And so I'd have, I'm not going to say the brand name, but it was like a fizzy painkiller that had some caffeine in it. You know, that's just not a good place to be. So cigarettes, energy drinks, caffeinated tablets, painkillers when you're not really feeling any pain. These things are all addictions. And I will admit, you know, I had that addiction. It wasn't good. And it took other people to say, what the F are you doing? You know, it just helps me through. Just, you know, when I look back and listen to myself, I was getting addicted. And I got out of those addictions. But Addictions are there. You know, cigarettes and energy drinks, they're not a substitute for refs. Having a beer or a little whiskey or something, or a gin and tonic or something at the end of a night shift when you get home, that is not how to help you get to sleep. But I've done it. Not a lot, but I've done it. And I know other officers who that became a habit for them. A little whiskey before they went to sleep. You know, that's just not a good place to be. Addiction to alcohol. You know, that is a thing. There's a lot of police officers I've come across who I was absolutely convinced are alcoholics. There's one police officer as an inspector. My sergeant came in saying, "What do I do with him? He's come in and he smells of alcohol." Did he drive in? Yeah, breathalyze him. And we breathalyzed him and he was over the limit. And we had to take the necessary course of action. He was an alcoholic. You know, so that happens. That happens. Good food. You know, kebabs should be a luxury, not the norm. Dirty refs should be the luxury, not the norm. You know, seriously, I know it's a bit preachy this, but look, some healthy food is going to serve you far better. And actually in the future, I'm looking to do something on healthy food. I'm convinced that it's something that might be really helpful for you. All right, so that's number 4. You just got to look after that health. And it links in with the previous one about just getting out and doing some exercise. It feels so good. Number 5, fess up. Like, seriously, you're going to make some big mistakes. And mistakes aren't like a bottle of red wine. They don't get better with age. They just get worse. The more you leave it, the more you don't fess up, the worse that mistake's going to get. And the thing is, it could lead to a misconduct hearing, because if you've done something stupid and you fess up to it straight away, like go to the sergeant's office and say, "I think I've done something really stupid." You know, as a sergeant, I'd welcome that, because I'd be thinking, they're telling me now, not in 2 weeks' time. And I can probably help with this thing. Now, if they've done something intentionally criminal, then that's misconduct. You know, one of my officers went to prison. You know, one of my police officers, one of my constables was sent to prison, and he got sent to prison because of misconduct. And it was the right place for him, and he absolutely deserved all of the months that he spent in prison. So if you've done misconduct, then God help you. If you've done it intentionally, God help you, because there's a line, and you cross it intentionally, then you need to face the consequences. The other side of it is just mistakes. But if you don't fess up, if you don't go into a sergeant's office and say, "I've made a mistake," they will look at it 2 weeks later and go, "Why didn't you tell us? Was it because you were hiding something?" And then you might be facing a misconduct. So look, fess up. Seriously, fess up as soon as you possibly can. Because as a sergeant, whenever anyone came into my office and said, "Sarge, I think I made a big mistake," like, sit down, tell me all about it. I'm all ears. No one ever went for misconduct who came in and said, "I made a mistake." Sometimes they did things that were just stupid. And have I done stupid things in my time? Yes. Were they misconduct? No. Your sergeant is there to help you. And help you, they will. A good sergeant will help you. Most sergeants are really good sergeants. You know, it's just such a pivotal rank. It's an awesome rank. It's one to aspire to. It's an amazing rank. You know, things happen because of sergeants. Not because of inspectors, not because of the chief constable. Things happen because of sergeants. So, great role to be in. But got to get good at dealing with people. So fess up, please, honestly. Whatever problem you've got that you think is massive, I can guarantee that Sarge is going to go, "Okay, all right, we can sort this out." Like, we can sort this out. Because they've probably done it themselves, or they've probably dealt with it themselves as a sergeant for some other constable who's made that mistake. Whatever you go to them with, you're not the first, you're not the last. All right, so fess up as soon as you possibly can. All right, number 6. Assaults. Someone's going to try and hurt you. At some point in your career, people or a person are going to try and hurt you. I've had blood spat in my face. Some of it went in my mouth and in my eye, and I had to have all sorts of tests for hepatitis, and some of the things hadn't even been invented back then. But like for 6 months, I couldn't have any form of relationship. You know, that was it, because there was a risk I might have had Hep B or some other nasty. I've been punched that many times. I've been head-butted. My nose has been put out of shape. I've been bitten 3 times. I've been kicked and punched. I've had bottles thrown at me. I've seen one of my officers take a bottle to his nose. It broke his nose. He was off for 4 months. It was smashed on his face. Bits of glass went in my face, cut me. I've had a loaded shotgun pointed at me. You know, I'm still here. Other officers, God bless their souls, some officers I knew, never made it back. So look, this is a fact of being a police officer. At some point, someone's going to try and hurt you. And it's not, you know, don't think of it as just being like, oh, it's part of the job, because it's not, and it's not okay. It will mess with your head at some point. And if it doesn't mess with yours, it's going to mess with your loved ones. So when you go home with that scratch, bruise, whatever, and you may be thinking, all part of the job, all part of the rough and tumble, it's just part of what it is, they are going to worry about you. Seriously, they are going to seriously worry about you. So when you next go to work and you close that door on them, what do you think is going through their heads? So look, it's not just about you, it's about your family and loved ones as well. And so, look, when that does happen, there's no shame at all in reaching out for some help, because you might be really confused about why this person who I've never met before wanted to hurt me. And so you will. I mean, I don't know if anyone has managed to get through their policing career without being assaulted. So it's a fact. I touch wood, you know, is nothing serious. Touch wood, when it happens, it's not too serious. But look, for some, it is. And, you know, I went through the mill. Like I said, just so many things, bitten, punched, spat at, loaded shotgun, knife pulled on me, batons pulled on me. It's just, you know, I don't think I was unlucky. I think just, look, that was it. That's the game. But I wish I'd reached out for some help to, you know, up there. And I wish I'd thought a little bit more about my family as well. All right. So that's number 6. I run out of little magnets, so that's a bit of sticky tape. Number 7, harsh reality, dead people. I'd never seen anyone who was dead before I joined the police. Now, having been retired for a decade, I can still imagine, I can still imagine in my mind, I can still feel it, even just talking about it now, that the smell of a dead person is coming back. You know, like, dead people have got a very particular smell. You'll get good at lifting up letterboxes after a neighbour's said, look, I've not seen the neighbours for a while. And you see the flies on the inside of the window and you're just like, all right, I think I know what's going to happen next. You lift up the letterbox and, yeah, dead person inside. And it's really hard to deal with it. Especially when things like you come across someone who's died peacefully in their bed of old age, and you're trying to find out who they are, and you find all of. I'm just thinking about a particular occasion where I found all the medals this person had been awarded from the Second World War. This was a highly decorated individual, gave so much to his country, and we managed to track down a relative. And the first thing he said was, "How much money's in the house?" Like, really, seriously? You know, I was so angry that day. Should have talked about it with my sergeant, who did say, "Are you okay?" Or the time when one of my constables lost it completely because he went to a sudden death, and there was this woman who fell asleep peacefully, died in her sleep, sat by the fire, and half a leg had just been cooking in front of the fire, and the dog was so hungry it started eating her. You know, how do you deal with that? Or the sudden death where the person hung himself and he'd been there for that long, undiscovered, that the undertakers were having trouble actually scooping him up. Horrible. Or the individual I came across who I knew because I'd come across him, I'd dealt with him, I'd arrested him. And there he was, he'd been there for a week with a needle sticking out of his arm, overdose. And then the really painful part is you've got to break the news to the relatives. You know, you either might get a response of, well, how much money is there? But it's really hard, you know, it's really hard. And you'll never be like, I'm really good at death. I've never met any officer who said, I'm good at dealing with death. Because It's just something that they never say. So, yeah, make sure you reach out for some help up there. Please do. I wish I had. I wish I had. So there you go. I decided on 7 because I thought any more than that might be a bit of an overwhelm. But those are 7 sort of, I think they're like harsh realities of policing based on my experience, the experience of so many police officers I know and I've spoken to. And hopefully that's useful for you. But there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more now. Because I've not talked about why it's the best job in the world. Because here's the thing. How many other professions do you know where if you ask people, what's it really like? They'll go, oh, paperwork, blah, 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 blah. It's this, that, the other. Bobbies love to have a grumble and a moan. But they'll always end with, the thing is, though, it's just the best job in the world. And it is. How many other professions do you know where people will say, genuinely, hand on their heart, it's the best job in the world? It just doesn't happen, does it? It just doesn't. Try it. Ask people, when was the last time you said your career was the best job in the world? But police officers say that, and they mean it. I had a sergeant who used to say this with conviction and passion at the end of every parade. Parade everyone on duty, everyone's got their duties, everyone's about to go out, we give them a little pep talk and he'll just go, and just remember, best job in the world. And he meant it. And I did. And so, look, when you hear people say TJF, look, what that stands for, the jobs, it's not. It's something in their heads. They might need some help. You might need to ask that F word question. How are you feeling at the moment? Because it's not the job that's effed. It's something going on in their head. Because the thing is, as a police officer, you are a servant of His Majesty. I mean, how freaking awesome is this? This is my inspector's cap. I got to wear this every day and just look. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm just pointing out, that was the Queen's emblem, Elizabeth Regina II. There's a crown. I got to wear the Queen's crown on my uniform. I represented Her Majesty the Queen, who I know she appreciated every police officer, because you swear your oath of office to the Queen. You're not employed as a police officer. You have a special place in society because you are a crown servant. Employment law doesn't apply to you, which is why you can't go on a strike and lots of other things. But you can't be made redundant because you're not employed. Redundancy only applies to employment law. You can't be made redundant because you're not employed. You're a servant of His Majesty now. I was a servant, a proud servant of Her Majesty. I got to wear her uniform, wear her crown on my uniform every day when I went out on patrol. How amazing is that? I mean, how awesome is that? And you will be rewarded with a medal for 20 years service. It's 23 years service when I got mine, but it's been reduced to 20 now. And it's not just any medal. It's the Queen's, mine was the Queen's, but the King's medal for good conduct and exemplary conduct. It's not just any medal. There is no other medal like it in the world because it's inscribed with your rank and name on the side. That's how much the crown, that's how much His Majesty will care about you. Because you could have just got a medal, but no, this medal is unique. There is no other medal like it. So look, the pride, the enormous pride in serving the crown, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. I'm not a royalist or anything, but I served Her Majesty and I never forgot that. And I think some officers forget that the uniform they wear represents something. It represents their oath of office. It represents all that is good in this country. Cliched, but I know. All right, the next bonus about being a police officer is there's so many careers within careers. I had 21 different roles. I served in the Cheshire Constabulary. I served in Bermuda Police. I served in the Bermuda Police in their special branch. I was a detective in their special branch. How awesome was that? And how awesome was it that I went from there to Greater Manchester Police? Anyway, that was still awesome as well. I had 21 different roles. throughout my 3 decades. So many different careers within careers. There's immense satisfaction of being a police officer. Sometimes you're going to go home and you are going to just be proud of something that you've done that can't be measured, that it's not about the performance statistics or anything like that, but something you've done to help change someone's life. I can still remember the woman who was a victim of domestic violence from, this is like 1987. It's so long ago. And her kids, because I did more than there was required to help protect her and her family from a violent husband. And I still remember the heartfelt thanks from the family. There's so many other moments as well. These are golden moments. They're just little things. They're golden thank yous. You'll remember them forever. Forever. And there's nothing like it. Seriously, there's nothing like it. Number 4, the fourth, I've got 5 bonuses for you here as to why it's the best job in the world. It spoils you for everything else. Everything else just seems mediocre. Like other people will be talking about their jobs, their roles, and you'll be thinking, and don't get all boastful in anything. Just you're allowed to think, yeah, but you're not police, are you? I know it might seem a bit cocky, but everything else just pales into mediocrity. Seriously, it does. If you're not police, it's mediocre. And I know some people might be saying, how dare you say that? I believe that. And I've looked at all sorts of other careers since I've left policing. I've got my own business, but I've looked at other careers and thought, would I like to do that? No, mediocre, no, mediocre, no, mediocre. So just no. Spoils you for everything else. Number 5, 5th bonus, makes it the best job in the world. The camaraderie. There's some people I just didn't like in the police. You're not going to like everyone, but there are still people, and I'm lucky to be surrounded by them in the Blue Light Academy. I've got some of the most awesome retired police officers and police officers who actually work with me. They're amazing individuals. Some of them I've known for over 30 years. Like Andrea, if you're listening. We pushed pandas around, police cars, around Withenshaw in South Manchester in 1992. That's like 32 years ago, because we're making this video is from 2024. So the camaraderie is just awesome. And I know that even though I've not kept in touch with some people, if I ever needed help from them, they would give it willingly and readily. Readily. That's a word. And if I knew that one of my comrades, my colleagues, was struggling with something, even though they're retired now, I'd do anything to help them. Anything. So that camaraderie is just awesome. I used to call it Kebab camaraderie, because there's nothing better than on the last one of nights, if you can. As the inspector, I used to do the kebab run. I used to go and get the kebabs. And I might be thinking, oh, we've not got time for that. No, make time for it, because it's important. And I'd make sure everyone got dragged in, and I'd make sure comms put a halt on jobs. And 3 o'clock in the morning, last one of nights, would sit around, eat kebabs. Kebab camaraderie. Sunday morning breakfast cooked by the sergeants. These are traditions which should be brought back. Sergeants cook the breakfast Sunday morning. All right, so the jobs might pile up a little bit, but this is all part of being a team. And having Sarge cook your breakfast for you. And I've been that sergeant, by the way. I've been that sergeant. I'm not like, oh, I'd never do that. No, I've been that sergeant cooking your breakfast. And there's the inspector I used to chip in as well. But the sergeants would normally say, you sit down, boss. It's not your job. Great. That's amazing. It's just awesome. Best job in the world. Would I have ever done anything else? If I could go back in time, would I join the police? 120%. So, look, despite all these harsh realities, it is the best job in the world. It's one worth working towards. It's one that's worth your best efforts. Do the planning, do the preparation, do the practice. Give 120% to your recruitment journey. The prize, the warrant card in your pocket is so worth it. So on that, I'll park it there, shall I? That's quite a long video, quite a long podcast. I hope it's been useful for you. If you've got any questions about any of these things, please do let me know. If you're a serving police officer and you've listened to this and you're thinking, some of that is me and I don't know who to turn to us. We've got over 150 years of managerial experience in the police. You know, that's a lot of experience. And I'd like to think that the people around me are some of the wisest police officers I've ever come across. So if that's you, even if you're not one of our clients, you know, reach out, because that's that thing about being a police officer. It is a family, and you're one of our family. Take care, everyone. Hopefully useful. Speak to you soon.